Okay, so the future of AI. It's not just about cool new tech anymore. It's being set up as a full-blown global race. And today, we're going to dig into the 2025 White House plan, a pretty bold strategy for how America plans to come out on top. So, the document we're looking at here is the official America's AI Action Plan. And let me tell you, from page 1, it's crystal clear this isn't your typical policy paper. It reads like a playbook for a really high-stakes game. They even bring up the space race, basically framing this whole thing as a competition that the US absolutely has to win.
And then you get to this quote, right up front in the preface. Wow, it really sets the stage for everything else. The wording here is pretty intense. It's not just about being a leader. It's about achieving, and I'm quoting here, unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance. That one single idea, it's the engine driving literally every single recommendation in this entire plan.
So the big question is, how do they plan to pull this off? Well, it's not just a bunch of random ideas. It's a very structured strategy, and it's built around a clear three-part framework that's designed to tackle this challenge from pretty much every possible angle. And here they are, the three main pillars of the whole strategy. First up, they want to accelerate innovation right here at home. Second, they're going to build out the huge physical infrastructure that AI needs to run. And third, the plan is to lead the way on the world stage, using both diplomacy and national security. So these three pillars, that's our roadmap for the rest of this breakdown.
All right, let's jump into Pillar 1, Unleashing Innovation. The whole idea here is pretty simple, really. It says the government's main job is to just create the right conditions for the private sector to absolutely flourish and move as fast as it possibly can.
And this really lays out the first big move, a major rollback of regulations. The plan specifically targets the previous administration's big executive order on AI. They call it an onerous regulatory regime, basically a bunch of red tape that they say would just smother innovation. So the goal is pretty blunt: get government out of the way of private industry.
So what does this less regulation approach actually look like in practice? Well, for industry, it means taking another look at all the FTC investigations from the last administration. For researchers, the push is to encourage open source AI and, importantly, make it easier for startups to get their hands on serious computing power. The plan also touches on values, making sure AI protects free speech by tweaking the NIST AI risk management framework. And finally, there's a promise of a worker-first agenda, which is all about skills and retraining.
Okay, so that brings us to Pillar 2, which is all about building the foundation. Because, AI isn't just some code floating around in the cloud. It runs on real physical stuff. And this part of the plan gets into the nitty-gritty of what we need: a ton of data centers, semiconductor plants, and of course, all the energy to power the whole shebang. And the plan's mantra for this section, it's about as direct as you can get. Build, baby, build. That's a direct quote, and it's basically the rallying cry for this whole infrastructure blitz. No messing around. So the plan hones in on three critical targets. First, data centers. The idea is to speed up construction by streamlining the environmental permitting process using what are called new categorical exclusions under NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. Second, semiconductor plants. The focus here is all about bringing chip manufacturing back home by revamping the CHIPS program office. And third, the energy grid. This is a big one. It calls for a whole new strategy to deal with the absolutely skyrocketing demand for power that AI is creating. And when it comes to the grid, the plan gets really specific. It lays out a three-step strategy. Step 1 is to stabilize what we've already got. Basically, stop power plants from closing down prematurely. Step 2 is to optimize the grid we have by bringing in advanced management technologies. And Step 3 is all about growth, prioritizing new, reliable energy sources for the future. And it specifically calls out nuclear and geothermal. All right, that brings us to the third and final pillar, a global playbook. This is where the strategy zooms out from just domestic policy and starts talking about how the US plans to flex its AI muscles and project its influence around the globe. And this global strategy really has two main parts, kind of an offense and a defense. On the proactive side, the plan is to export the full stack of American AI. We're talking everything from the chips to the software, to our allies and partners. Then, on the defensive side, it's about directly countering Chinese influence, especially in those international groups that are setting the rules and standards for AI.
Now, a really big piece of that defensive game is protecting America's tech advantage. This means getting much tougher on enforcing export controls for advanced chips and these super complex machines that make them. It also means teaming up with key allies so everyone's on the same page. And this is crucial. The plan calls for evaluating the most powerful frontier AI models for major national security risks, specifically their potential to help someone develop what are called CBRNE weapons. That's chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive weapons. So very serious stuff.
Okay, so as we start to bring this all together, it's worth taking a second to look at the core principles that are supposed to be guiding this entire action plan. Think of these as the fundamental values that are woven through all three of those pillars we just talked about.
And the document lays out 3 guiding principles pretty clearly. First, it's a worker-first principle. The idea is that AI policy has to make sure American workers and their families actually benefit from this revolution. Second is ideological neutrality. This is a push to make sure AI systems are free from bias and are built to pursue what the plan calls objective truth rather than social engineering agendas. And the third principle is security and vigilance. Basically, a constant reminder that these advanced technologies have to be protected from being misused or stolen by bad actors.
The plan itself ends by framing the stakes in just massive terms. It calls AI an industrial revolution, an information revolution, and a renaissance, all at once. And that really leaves us with a huge question, one pulled right from the spirit of the text. If this is the race they say it is, what does winning it actually look like for our future?